project those concepts together. And that's what our panel is here also to discuss with you, and the mechanisms by which we can try and be better and how we can address these issues in a very direct way. So first off, I'm just going to introduce our panelists very quickly. I'm very, very privileged to have one of my favorite state representatives, Nabeela Syed from Palatine. We ran together a few years back, and she has been a superstar in the legislature, and I'm so very proud to not only call her my friend, but my colleague as we work together for the issues in the northwest suburbs. We also have Naqi Mamdani, who is a student leader for the Children of Abraham Coalition, one of the founders of that organization was actually my law school classmate and is now a Catholic priest. He obviously did better than I did coming out of law school. We also have Liza Gutierrez, who's the Director of Immigrant Programs and Partners for Our Communities. Another great partner of the county, and I appreciate her appearance here. And my colleague within the county, Jennifer King, who is the Executive Director of the Cook County Department of Human Rights and Ethics. We do a lot with those organizations. We have Abik Das, who's also part of our coalition of human rights within the county, and important work that we do together. So first off, I'm just going to pass off the microphone to each of you as we go down the line. And I guess my first question is going to be to tell you a little bit about yourself, and then also how the film that we saw relates to some of the work that you're doing or plan to do within your organization or the government you serve, or the things that you do in your personal life. So I'll put it to Representative Syed first.
Hello, everyone. First off, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We have a wonderful turnout. My name is Nabeela Syed. I am the state representative for the 51st District. So that includes portions of Palatine, Inverness, Hawthorne Woods, Killdeer, Deer Park. It's a 20-minute drive away from here. So I was recently elected. I became the first Muslim, among the first Muslims to be in the General Assembly, the first Muslim woman, the first South Asian woman, and I'm the youngest Democrat in the General Assembly. So, thank you. Glad to hear that. So, you know, I feel like this movie really resonated with me, and I think even my own emotions will, you know, you think being in politics, being in this space, you're exposed to a lot of this. You're very aware of racism, you're very aware, and I grew up with Islamophobia. Like, I was very aware of the concepts that this film presented. But even I found myself surprised by my emotions, you know, the current events, how this all ties together, the impact of violence in our communities, and the, you know, Scott, I know you mentioned, like, you know, how are you combating this in your work right now? But I would say even, you know, I was born in 1999, so 2 years before 9/11. And I grew up in this wave of Islamophobia, attending public elementary school, kindergarten, high school, post 9/11 as a Muslim woman, as a Muslim girl. And I remember, you know, working to combat this in Islamophobia and bridge these divides in our community since a young age. I remember standing up for the pledge very sternly, making sure my shoulders were pulled back so no one in the classroom could doubt that I was less patriotic than that. And this was me in 3rd grade. Like, that's the first time I remember doing this. And wanting from a young age to partake in interfaith communities through my mosque. So for some of us, you know, we grew up doing this work without even realizing it, because we understood the importance of educating others, of building these relationships for the sake of peace, for the sake of people, of needing to understand that, you know, we need to build these bridges so people can understand our differences and not see us as terrorists. I will tell you, even the word terrorist sometimes triggers me, because I was so aware of that word from a young age, of being afraid of being accused of being a terrorist, that even, you know, when they say it in the film, you know, I get worried. It, you know, sparks an alarm in my brain. So I'd like to think that even through my work now as a state representative, you know, I've been very supportive of all initiatives to protect our communities against hate, to ensure that there's good education being provided. So I want to thank the Commissioner for putting this on so that, you know, we're doing our part to continue this work. And then I also believe that through being one of the first in my community, through representing Muslims, through representing South Asians, folks are able to see that we too, as it's become known, that we too want to contribute to our government. We too care about this country, we care about our local communities, and we want to see differences. We want to see change for everyone. So I'd like to think that, even in my past and now, I've worked towards the values of this film, but as I mentioned, you learn something new every day, and I feel like I learned a lot even from this film tonight.
So my name is Liza Gutierrez. I am the first director of immigrant programs at Partners for Our Communities. And Partners for Our Communities is an Illinois Welcoming Center designated so by the Illinois Department of Human Services. And we serve all the way from Prospect Heights to Hanover Park. And immigration is my bread and butter. And so our job is to ensure that everyone, regardless of who they are, have a successful life and a family life here in Illinois. During the past Southern Border fiscal years, we called it, we were housed at the Wheeling Hotel, and that's when Commissioner Scott Britton and his group, his staff were amazing, helping us with the Southern Border SIVs at the hotel. They got us the first coats that we needed to make sure that the kids could go to school. So I want to take time to thank you, especially thank you if you feel that you really aren't, you're not, how should I say, that immigration, that's not something that you're concerned with, or that this racism, that's something that doesn't concern you, because it is you who feels that, this is a Southern Border problem, or who feels like this is a Chicago problem, or feels like, yeah, this Muslim thing, we don't have that problem. It's actually you who are the change makers. When you get out of your comfort zone and you come to things like this, to see these movies and light bulbs go off and you realize, wait a minute, this is happening in my community too. In my personal life, I'm also a trustee in the village of Hanover Park. The village of Hanover Park is a little village, I just say we're next to Schaumburg, that's the easiest way to say it. We're there. And we're known as America's Global Village. And at this time, when other villages are saying, we have to put up ordinances so that buses don't come, we're saying we're not going to do that because they were still going to come anyway, right? And so I'm really proud of Hanover Park from back in the 1990s where there was still a cross burning. There was a Klan member not too far from there who was burning a cross. Today, it is America's Global Village. And we have one of the most diverse boards that we have. And oh my God, we really do get out something out there, but at the end we come together as family. So I just want to thank you for taking time out to get open up a little bit more about these things and to have a heart for this. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer King. I'm the Executive Director for Cook County's Department of Human Rights and Ethics, which includes the Cook County Commission on Human Rights. First, I just want to thank Commissioner Britton so much for inviting us to join today and continue to be a partner in the important work that you're doing. The Cook County Commission on Human Rights, our mission is to protect those in Cook County from discrimination and harassment. We also enforce labor-related protections, but most relevant, I would say, is the many rules that have been passed by the Cook County Board of Commissioners to protect individuals from harassment and discrimination, and even including an expansion of bases of discrimination that have been added over the past year. So this movie is particularly on point for the work that we're doing with the commission, and I was personally moved by this story, and simply the fact that when we get outside of our own bubbles and have an opportunity to talk with individuals who are from a different walk of life than us, it's really an opportunity to grow and dispel some of this hate that we're seeing that's causing some irreparable harm across the world. Thank you.
Hi guys, thank you all for coming. My name is Naqi Mamdani. A good way to remember it is it's the word lucky, and it starts with an N, so Naqi, that's how you say it. My credentials aren't as cool as theirs, so maybe it's best that I'm going last, but I'm a youth leader for the Children of Abraham Coalition. Our organization was founded in 2010, and we work, we strive endlessly to make sure that Muslims, Christians, and Jews learn to be around one another, learn to develop more interfaith love instead of hate. And so this film really resonated with me because of one thing that happened really recently. You guys might have heard of the event in Glendale Heights, there was a young Muslim girl, a middle school girl, who was assaulted in school. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. The story is still developing, and there's lots of things going on at the same time. But what I want to emphasize is that this is still going on today. We're sitting in a room that we're watching it on the screen, and none of us are really in danger, nothing's happening. But there's a girl who's suffering from it who is in middle school, and so it's as young kids are doing this stuff, So I want to express my appreciation for you guys coming here, because you and I are the people that are starting to bridge this divide in our youth, right? Because they're going to grow up, they're going to become who we are, hopefully better than us, and they're going to come to these events and start loving their friends, start being okay with being around people of other faiths. And so thank you guys for coming, really, because hearing about this event, right, this last week, and then coming here and seeing you guys all present, having such a big audience where there's barely any chairs empty, is a really, really good thing to see. So I just want to thank you guys, and hopefully we can work together to make a future better for our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting to me always especially when I sit next to Nabeela, because if you look at us, we don't look terribly alike. I come from the smallest of small farm towns in the central part of central Illinois. Looks a lot like where Chris comes from in Georgia. A lot of Chevys on blocks, a lot of Confederate flags. But you choose who you are, and you choose what you believe. And the basics of tolerance and understanding and empathy are things that I think that we can share and work together on. And Nabeela and I probably agree on 99.9% of everything that goes on around here, but that's because we choose to. And I think that's a really tremendous reflection of why I love this country and why we are an idea as opposed to a people of either a race or ethnicity or a belief system, because it's the ideals that we try and incorporate in our personal lives, and also then to try and expand those out into our community. So I guess my question is, and Nabeela, you may be able to speak to this directly, we've had a lot of funding opportunities. The county received over $1 billion from the federal government as a American Rescue Plan. But are there specific things within the state government that you can think of that address both extremism or violence against marginalized groups that are specific to the state's undertaking, either through the money that they receive or through the constant funding that we just have through paying our taxes?
So there's some aspect of wanting to be preventative of violence, and then also in the incidences that there is violence occurring, providing protection. So there was not recently, I think the grant was renewed, but to provide money, resources to churches, synagogues, mosques, places, 501c3s that could be victims of vandalism, of someone breaking glass in the building, someone trying to attack the building. So there are resources that are provided through the state to protect these institutions, to make sure that in the event that something does happen, they're protected and they're financially supported. And then in terms of preventative, there has been a lot of discussion about violence prevention. In violence prevention, I'll just give an example. In Palatine, there have been significant incidences of shootings, not school shootings, of shootings in the community. We lost 2 young boys in the northeast portion of Palatine. We lost someone else in the southern portion of my district. And this is unprecedented for Palatine, Illinois. This is unprecedented for a lot of communities in the northwest suburbs. So we have been having these conversations of what should the state do to protect against this violence, because we saw the negative effects of violence in this film, right? We saw that when this man went to Afghanistan and when he was part of this war, that violence bred a hatred in him. It bred a hatred against a group of people. We saw that, is it Havel, when his family, when his mother was abused, beat up in front of him, he had that option to lean into that fear, to lean into that anger, and he clearly outlaid it in the film that He chose not to. So we know the negative impacts of violence. When we see violence today, when they're talking about it on the news, when you see it on social media, it's, you know, that's where I started to gain a bit more empathy for Chris, because in the movie I was like, why is the Havel, you know, he's doing so much. He's going out, he keeps texting, he does all this work, you know, it reminded me of like, you know, he's trying, but Chris is the one in the wrong here, right? Chris has these ideologies. But then you have to empathize with Chris, because these ideologies, they came from somewhere, and they came from the violence that he shouldn't have had to endure, but he did. So, you know, there's important work, you know, I could go on tangents as to why I'm a politician, and we talk about it. But there's a lot of important work and a lot of important conversations that we're having at the state level about this as well. Does anyone else want to speak to this?
Sure. So we partner with other organizations like our state's attorney's office, law enforcement, because there are instances where, yes, some result in violence, where there is need for law enforcement to take action. And then there are other instances where it's appropriate where a complaint should be filed with us, where it's, you know, clear from what has occurred that there is potentially a violation of our human rights ordinance, and that there is discrimination that is taking place based on someone's identity. And so we encourage individuals to file with us. They have a right to do so. It is free, and we will work with anyone who comes to us for assistance, either if there's a question about, well, what does this actually mean? What does this protection actually mean, and how does that affect my particular situation? Or can you connect me with other resources that might be helpful to me?
And so I guess my next question is related to Clarkson, which I knew nothing about the refugee population, the number of languages that are spoken there, and the incredibly welcoming method by which that community in Georgia welcomed their refugees. And obviously we're dealing with a very significant refugee issue here in Chicago. I feel like it again reinforces in my mind the incredible advantage we have in this country, and that we can welcome these individuals who are not illegal. They are here seeking asylum from communist countries, many of them, which I think gets lost in the rhetoric. But I guess what I would like to know is, can we be as welcoming as this community in Georgia? And are there things that we are doing in our personal lives or in our organizations like POC that would help with that? And maybe we can have Lisa start with that.
Hi. Yes, we're so blessed in America. We're truly blessed to be here, and there are a lot of communities like that here, where we might not have refugee centers amongst us, but we have what they call Illinois Welcoming Centers, of which POC is one. We have another one in Hoffman, another one in Hanover Park, and there's about 44 of us, which is not a lot. When you think about it, 44 welcoming centers across Illinois, it's pretty big. We need more. But what we do in these centers is what we've done in Palatine, where we've created a one-stop shop for anyone to come in and find your essentials and more. And what we do, what we strive to do, is to bridge the gap between our native sons and our non-native sons, right? Our native brothers and our new asylum seekers. And so in those community centers, that's why they're so important, and that's why volunteers are my favorite people in the world, because you guys bridge the gap. They're the ones teaching the English classes. They're the ones translating documents. They're the ones going out to the community and educating them on their immigrant rights, especially workers' rights, which get violated often. They educate them on process, and they help them not only feel welcome, but teach them how to navigate life in America. In Hanover Park, if I can speak for that, that's why we opened the POC in Hanover Park, because our model is America's global village. And when you see that over 40% of the people that live in that little town identify as immigrant, that's a very large population. We have to look at as elected officials, we have to look at that and say, are we serving these groups of people? And so we, as a community, this is why it's so important who you vote for, and to go out and vote, and vote early. I like to say vote often. It is Chicago. Don't break the law, though. Yeah, but these are folks that help us bridge the gap are elected officials. And so in Hanover Park, what we did is we asked for the city colleges to come in. We asked for Harbor College and Elgin to, hey, give us a work community center. We need English classes here. We hold them accountable. So we hold all the stakeholders accountable. So we go to the banks and we say, hey, part of the population speaks Urdu and Pashto. What do you have in that language? Because you want them to have services here. So we advocate for them. And this is my soapbox when it comes to the immigrants coming in. We have a lot of people that say, oh, you guys are spending taxpayer money on these folks. And I always say there's three types of people. The ones that were here before time immemorial, those that were brought here against their wishes, and the rest of us that migrated here. And that includes most of us here. Our ancestors did too. And that's how it's always been done. These are our future. These kids that we were taking care of, that you got coats for, Scott, over at the hotel, these kids are going to be our next lawyers, our next doctors. They're the future. And you know what? I want them to be healthy because they're going to take care of me when I'm in my old age, right? And so that's what community centers can do, and that's how we leverage our partners at the legislative level, and that's how we leverage our communities as well by bringing them in. And these community centers tend to be the center of the web, if you can say it that way, but we bring everybody together for that common good, regardless of who you are. And what I like the most about it is that we have people from all walks of life coming in to help. And our immigrants are also from all walks of life. So we have Republicans, Democrats, Liberals, the Green Party, Independents, they all come together for this. And we can't do this. It takes a long time. It took about 35 years to get POC where it's at in Palatine, but we're there for a reason. And as Nabeela said, we did lose two young lives, and that was in our neck of the woods, right in the middle of one of our programs too. And so on purpose, one of the things we do is we go to the neighborhoods that are impoverished. We work with the church, they do faith feeds, they do a mobile food pantry. So we go out to them on purpose because oftentimes they're too afraid to come to us. And we start breaking those barriers. So that's just a couple of things we're doing.
And you know, I again want to, part of the benefits of Cook County United Against Hate, at least from my staff and for me, is that we've learned about some of these organizations like Children of Abraham Coalition. So Naqi, I'd like you to describe a little bit about how that organization helps break down these barriers that we see too frequently, and how it emphasizes the universality of the human experience, and how you've seen that yourself in the organizations and then the activities that you participate in.
So Children of Abraham Coalition, it's we start young, so we try to educate the youth as young as possible so that they can grow up in the correct environment. You know, so branching also off of that. So Father Corey Gross, my mentor, the person who founded COAC as well, he actually spends a lot of his time helping refugees that are seeking asylum here. So he ensures they get a proper education, that they know how to navigate life around here, and then he tries to branch out into his communities to youth like me to also introduce myself to some of these people. And so this in turn helps break down these barriers against those refugees that some of us might have, whether it be conscious or unconscious. And so COAC's mission itself, we have one main event every year. It's called Peace Camp. And so we have middle schoolers come in from all surrounding cities of Chicago. They come in from all directions. And we have high schoolers and college students like myself, we call leaders. So we all meet together beforehand. We discuss, the agenda for the, event, and then we head to a church, a synagogue, and a mosque. And we have different lessons there for the kids to learn about what these religions are, what the people do, our types of worship, etc. So many things to learn there. And so the main solution out of all of this is that we start at the roots, and so we have the youth being properly educated so they grow up, the people they befriend have the right influences as well, and so together we can make that community starting strong from the bottom up. So that's our main goal at COAC.
One of the questions we got was how many people are helping others leave hate groups, and what can we do, at least in our own communities, to try and assist. As the question, is it common to leave hate groups, I would say I'm not so sure it's that common. However, I've had programs with Jeff Scoop, who's a former white supremacist American Nazi Party, who also participates in groups like the Chris individual we saw in the film, trying to get people out of those hate groups so that it is possible. I do believe in redemption, and I think we have seen that. I do a lot of this at the Simon Wiesenthal Center, who does a lot of, through their Museum of Tolerance, which is a mobile center that discusses hate groups and specifically the rejection of white supremacy. One thing I can tell you is that anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem. Racism is not a black problem. Islamophobia is not a Muslim problem. It is a problem for people who look like me. And that's why I feel it is so incredibly important for allies to stand strong with all the previously marginalized communities. Again, as I've said many times in this discussion, I come from individuals who are racist. My family migrated to Illinois from Eastern Tennessee. Some interesting philosophies out there. But that is where I come from. It's not who I am. And we choose what we worship, how we believe, and however that works out. But it does not mean the exclusion of anybody else. And so I do think there are opportunities for more things that we can do. And Cook County United Against Hate is one of those. I hope you'll go to the website. You can actually look on your phone now if you want. You're allowed. CookCountyUnitedAgainstHate.com. Take the pledge. Sign up to reject hate and intolerance in all of its forms. And then I guess I'll leave this last question. And it's more of a personal one where, what can we do, at least in your experience? And we have some people who do a lot of different things on this panel. But what do you think we as individuals can do to try to further the concepts of tolerance and acceptance and love that, at least in my experience in the last several years, seemed to start about 2016, strangely enough. But things that used to be whispered in basements and back alleys are now said openly and without fear of retribution and with pride. And so what is it we can do in our own communities, either on official roles or unofficial roles, to try to make a difference in how people treat each other?
So I feel like the number one thing that you guys can do, and I myself do this as well, that the biggest thing you guys can do is to reach out to your children, your grandchildren, your brothers, your sisters, people at your place of worship, people that you know in your community, at the gym, whatever. Just make sure you reach out to them and ensure that they know that not everybody is like them. Not everybody believes in what they believe, and that having a difference is not a bad thing. If you'd like to, have your kids come to Children of Abraham Coalition, that's always great. You can always go on the website and have that, or you can talk to me after. That's cool too. But just making sure that people know that having a difference in anything isn't a bad thing. It's always a good thing. You can always learn from the other person. And yeah, just make sure that you yourself also understand that not everybody's like you, and so there's some really cool people out there that have really interesting stories. Make sure you're always open to that.
I would kind of echo that. This idea that people have interesting stories, so like how we saw Chris and Kabal or Havel, just having this conversation. So I think getting outside of our comfort zones and talking to people who are not like us, you've really learned so much. And personally, I would say that when I think about what I know about people who are different from me, it's come from having conversations with those individuals, whether I'm engaging with them at work or through school or some other organization, or just running into them and having a conversation when we're waiting because our flight is delayed, which happens a little more often than we would like. But I think that's one thing personally that I would recommend, and one thing that I strive to do, to understand people who are coming from just a different walk of life than I do. And for the commission, we provide, two of our functions are investigating allegations of discrimination and harassment, but then also providing training, educating the public about their rights under the Human Rights Ordinance, and also those individuals who have responsibilities under the ordinance. And so we provide or welcome people to sign up for our newsletter. I know we have some resources in the back, but also we're happy to do trainings about what are the protected bases or classes, protected classes. How, what are the protections that are offered under the Human Rights Ordinance, and then information about if I know someone who's experienced discrimination, now I have the resources to tell them, like, you might want to contact this commission. They might be able to help you. Either you can file a complaint with them, or if you have a question about it, or you need a resource, maybe they can connect you with that. And so that's what we're personally doing. And I also want to pivot. Earlier, there was a question about language accessibility. I know that across the county, there's a push to increase language accessibility, and we're personally looking at this as well within the department of ensuring that we have complaint forms in multiple languages. I think right now seven languages, and it's based on what 7 most spoken languages across the county are. And so looking at that, and then things that can we? I think now you can translate the website based on those different languages as well. So we want to make sure that not only is the information there, but it's accessible to people. And then thinking of innovative ways to get out into the community, and particularly those who would be most affected by the protections that are offered for the commission.
So for me, what I really liked about this film was that Chris became really self-aware, right, of his biases. And I remember when I started this work 22 years ago, and when I say that, that's 23 years ago. 23 years ago, someone said, Lisa, first of all, you need to be aware of your biases. And I was like, I'm Puerto Rican. Have you seen my DNA? I am the world, literally. So to become self-aware, and let's be honest, we all have our own biases. Right? Let's be honest, when we see the young black guy with the hoodie walking down the road, what do? We cross. Right? So becoming self-aware, and ask yourself, why am I behaving this way? And get more information, about it. Study yourself, become aware. And then the second thing, as you become aware, you're going to start studying the next thing that's in your face. And in Illinois right now, it's the southern border crisis. Why are they coming? Find out why. Research the walkers. Why are they coming here? Find out why. Get educated about that. And the third thing is then get out of your comfort zone. Be an ally. Reach out. Volunteer. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to knock on that neighbor's door and say, hi, welcome to the neighborhood. I dare you to do that. When you do that, you're going to open up your world to a lot of color. And finally, you need to start becoming comfortable. I need to start becoming comfortable with change, right? There's always a change in the population, and that's happening right now. And so as we become self-aware, become educated about that change becomes easier for us.
I'm going to try to time myself a little bit. I'm just looking at when I'm starting. So I have two answers. One is for myself and people in my role, and then one is for, I would say, everyone. And the first one is as a political figure, as an elected official, as a candidate running for re-election, being very careful about the words you use. I don't know if you noticed on that bus that governor candidate was, it said murderers, rapists, killers, something else are in this bus. And that rhetoric kills. And that rhetoric is still being used today to describe the folks that are coming over through so much hardship to this country because they're escaping violence. And we need to be very careful as elected officials of what we say because our words can kill. We saw Waddell Fayumi in Plainfield, who was stabbed 16 or 26 times for being Palestinian, for being Muslim. We see the impact of these anti-Semitic literature being, distributed. I saw it in my parents' driveway. We see the vandalisms, the attacks on synagogues. As leaders in the community, whether you lead an organization or you're running for office or you're an elected official, call it out. Call it out and refrain from doing it. And then the second, I only took a minute on that. The second thing is, and this is where I'm going to get a little political, a little bit more controversial. This may not be, you may not necessarily agree with me here, but reject violence wherever you see it. We saw the harm of violence. We saw the psychological impact it had on Chris when he was in Afghanistan. we see how it develops hatred in your heart. And to a certain extent, I don't blame Chris, because he saw this was his environment. He saw this happening to people that were on his side, and he found an enemy, and he developed these misconceptions, and he kept those in his heart. And Chicago today did something huge. They voted for a ceasefire. And I know that is controversial, but what that ceasefire is a rejection of violence. It is a rejection of more deaths, of Jewish people, of Israeli people, of Muslim people, of Palestinian people. It is an advocacy for releasing hostages, making sure that people come home. But at the end of the day, it's a recognition that all this violence, no matter what side you are on, however you feel about it, will damage people for generations to come. It will create this trauma that they can't escape. And then instead, they perpetuate this violence in their future because they don't know any better. And at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not you agree about what Chicago did today, I hope we can agree that the rejection of violence in all forms is so important to build better communities here, to build better communities abroad. So thank you all so much. Okay, 3 minutes total.
Thanks, Nabeela. And I'll leave you with just a couple thoughts. First off, Nabeela made a very good point. We had a meeting last week of the Cook County Board, and one of the speakers referred to people as illegals. And I did not realize until my colleagues told me that that is a hate word. And I thought, yeah, it is. And I was presiding over the meeting at the time as the chairman of the committee, and I thought, yeah, I'm not going to let you say that anymore, because it is a hate word. And that is why, again, we can always educate ourselves. I'm an old dog, but I can still learn a new trick every once in a while. And I think we can all do that within our personal lives, and I hope that we will. There is one quick question that talks about the symbol of United Against Hate. What do the colors stand for? It's just the rainbow. It's the unity that we have through our diversity, which is the great, I think, essence of our country, and which I think is reflected at this table, and which is reflected throughout Cook County, and I'm very proud of that. People have also asked if they can watch the film again or share it. We'll put information regarding the film on the website, on CookCountyUnitedAgainstHate.com, and you can take a look at it there. Thank you so much for coming out. I know you came from all over, including not even my district, which I love. This is my town. I'm here 3-4 times a week working out right over there. Yeah, you want to? And I feel like this is as topical anywhere as it is here in our town, and that we can still all do better. So thank you again, and congratulations.